I can hear you well. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Fantastic, fantastic. So you drive with Uber, right, or Lyft, or both?
So I'm not a driver, but I have my brother's driven before, so I'm very familiar with the system.
Okay, cool.
But I am a member of your course.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
I've had it for some time now.
Awesome.
And I've went through all the material. I think you're a great teacher. And
Thanks,
thank you so much for doing the work that you've done, man.
I appreciate you, buddy.
Yeah. So right now I'm in Dallas. The goal was to expand here and start a ride-sharing, of course, business here.
Okay.
And I'm with a few businessmen that they had a question for me, and I was like, well, let me contact you and find out.
Absolutely.
But the question is, how do we start the fleet account? Because they're making it sound like it's real mystical, magical, but I just wanted to talk to you directly to see, what your recommendation would be.
Yeah.
If there's like a certain way we have to do it.
Yeah, so the easiest way to do it, I mean, do you guys have any current vehicles, or are you going to be acquiring vehicles in the near future?
Yeah, we're going to be acquiring.
Okay, and you're thinking more like SUVs, Suburbans in that direction, right? Or
yes.
Larger vehicles. Okay, so
no, Suburbans, following your method.
Yeah, perfect. So the Uber hubs, several of them have opened up again, especially in the major cities. So the Dallas hub should be open by appointment, right?
Okay.
And what you can do is you go by, you set up the appointment. You want to bypass anyone at the front desk. You want to make sure you speak to a manager, right? And then you go in and say, you have some brothers that are driving on the platform. You want to now collaborate with them and some business people and build out a fleet, right? So they'll have certain things that they'll want from you, before they get that fleet account going. And that is you'd have to apply to the state, obviously, to get your livery license, or what they call like a limo license for those particular vehicles. Now, Lyft is not strict at all. They will simply allow you to use those, Suburbans and larger vehicles on their platforms without the necessary livery license. But Uber is rather strict. So if you want to capitalize on those categories like the black category or the SUV category, and of course all those big vehicles will double up as XL vehicles automatically. You don't need any additional licenses for XL. But if you want to drive on sort of the money-making platforms and then obviously start recruiting your private clients, right? Because those cars that you are buying, even if you buy one or two in the beginning, they have to be on both platforms, Uber and Lyft, just to stay busy, pay for the costs, and make sure that the driver is earning money. The real gravy comes in when you start recruiting private drivers. And, there's like several methods I can go through where it's very, very easy to recruit future private drivers that stay with you, use you over and over again, and then more importantly, they usually refer you to 2 or 3 other people who then refer you to another 2 or 3 people. So it grows pretty quickly once they know, you're licensed, you have the right type of car, you situate yourself at business parks, at high-end hotels, airports. That's usually where you meet and interact with these type of clientele that you can build out, right? But the fleet account is usually, 1 or 2 more vehicles. Obviously, they like you to add in the future. Once you have that initial state license, it is very easy to add the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th car, right?
Gotcha.
The first one is always a bit of a challenge. At least the fees in Texas are very reasonable. You used to be in California, right? To do the same exercise here costs about 3 times as much as in California. But Texas, whether it's San Antonio, Houston, Dallas, they get it going pretty quickly. And when I say pretty quickly, under 2 months, right? You put your fees aside. You have to show the people at Uber when you open the fleet that you have a commercial insurance that you will be working with. Doesn't mean that you have to necessarily have signed any deal with them yet, but you show them, hey, it's our intention to use this in this company. The vehicles will have to be registered as commercial vehicles at the DMV, which I'd want to warn you, if you're thinking of financing the vehicles, then you want to make 100% sure that the financing house of that vehicle, whether it's a Ford Expedition, a Cadillac, or a Suburban, doesn't matter, or even a minivan, that they are okay that it is registered commercially, because they are the ones that do the registration for you. You don't purchase the vehicle unless they agree that the vehicle will be used for commercial purposes, right? They can decline you and say, no, sorry, we'll do just a regular DMV registration, and that's not going to fly with the fleet account. They have to see that the vehicle has been weighed and that it is registered as a commercial vehicle with a DMV. So there are a few steps. Usually a good Uber Hub manager goes over everything with you, and gives you pretty much a sheet of what they want to see in place. They have like a check sheet, and your privileges, I would say, get better and better the more business, the more you generate for them. Once they know you and you have your first or second car, you're making the money and the car's on the platform and you have good rated drivers, which I would say is one of the most important criteria, is that if you are going to commit to those vehicles, that you get like 4.9 rated drivers or higher. That's easy to get. You can get those from the Facebook groups, Craigslist ads. Let them show you how many trips they've done, what categories they've driven. Preferably that they've driven in those higher echelons, in those higher categories, not that they're just coming from UberX and want to go straight into SUV. That's not a wise decision, right? Okay. But that they at least have some XL or SUV or black or comfort, Uber comfort experience, and that they have a very, very high rating. You want really, really good drivers, not guys that I would drive with them, check them out, what their driving style is like, and I would make 100% sure you get those T-Mobile sync ups. It's called Sync, and you can run your whole fleet in one management account. It's very inexpensive, and then you can see their driving habits. If they're speeding, it monitors everything, and you have access to every single driver.
Yes.
On the Uber fleet platform, when you log in, they've really perfected it. So you can see where your drivers are. You can see how they are performing, especially if you are leasing out vehicles to a driver per week. And you, let's say, are expecting, $450 to $550 for that vehicle per week, which they pay you, right, which gets deducted out of their earnings. Uber will forward you their total weekly, let's say, earnings to your account. You then subtract the rental out of that, and then the difference you pay to them in a check. It's operated like a business, right? So So there's a lot of protections built in for you, because you do get paid. The monies arrive in your account. They know in your agreement with them that they have a specific weekly rate. I wouldn't tie them to any long contracts. I would just do it like a 1 month minimum contract, because you don't want to constantly be switching out drivers. Once you have a good driver, you'll quickly know you have a good driver, and they usually stay with you for a long, long time, right? So those are a couple of the basics that you will go over with a fleet manager at an Uber Hub. To go directly on the support line, which goes to Manila and the Philippines, those people really know nothing about fleet. So, and even if you get to a Uber support manager on the phone, they know very little. You have to take the time and walk into the hub and either set up the appointment during the pandemic, or sometimes they are quiet. They'll just let you come straight in, and then you set up a meeting right there with a manager, right?
Okay.
And again, like I said, that checklist of the items that have to be done, it's not super complicated. It's just paperwork, making the applications, paying the licensing fees, registration. Like I say, be very careful with that. Don't buy the car if the financing house, whether it's Chevrolet or whatever, doesn't agree to register it as a commercial vehicle. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And then, I mean, once you got, let's say, your first car, first two cars on the road in that account, if you see that someone's underperforming for 1 or 2 weeks, which means they're not really doing any work and they barely make that weekly, let's say you take 500 per week and then the driver's only generated 480, which is a big red flag, right? Because usually they do 1,000 to 1,500. So they make at least, or 2,000, and so that they can at least make 1,000 to 1,500 in their pocket and then pay you for the weekly rental. You know what I mean? But if you see someone is underperforming for 2 weeks, I usually cut them off because that's just future problems. You know, you don't want to play catch up. Oh, I'll make it up in week 3 or I'll make it up in week 4. No, you know what I mean? You have a strict agreement with them. You could take any enterprise rental agreement and modify it slightly.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's what I did. And then you have a contract with the drivers, which clearly spells out what you expect from them, right? That you can that you are monitoring their driving activity via that sync system, T-Mobile, or there's other ones out there as well. And if you find them, you know, speeding too much, or you know, you have the right to cut them off. You can't do that to a regular sort of enterprise car rental guy. You know, you can't just halfway through the day saying, hey, you know what, I noticed you're driving 110. We're cutting you off. You can't really monitor their driving. So the contract that you set up between you and your driver has to clearly spell out what responsibilities you have towards each other.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? And if you want to get some good feedback, jump into the Dallas Facebook room, right? Any fleet drivers out there, get some good feedback from some local drivers. The formula from city to city is the same. The fleet account is the same. It's just that you have a specific amount of vehicles, different types of vehicles on a platform registered with Uber, and it's set up as a business. You could set yourself up as an S corporation or an LLC, right? And then you have individual contracts with your drivers. It's not really ultra complicated. If you look at a company like Hire Car, right,
yes,
where they,
that's what I'm looking at. Yeah.
So more or less what they do is what you are. You're like a broker, right? So you're not going to list your vehicles with Hire Car because then you forfeit a huge percentage to them. What you're doing, you're acting sort of as a hire car. So look, their contracts are good to look at, and just strip them down. You know, just sort of pretend like you want to rent a car from them and get the agreement, modify that agreement. What the tricky thing is that once you've bought that vehicle, that driver, it could be your brother, could be a family member, could be a friend, could be, you know, a total third party. They have to be down on the insurance, right? So they sort of appear on the registration and on the insurance, and the fleet manager will explain how that's done. You know, they have a specific way, because if you start your own Uber account with UberX, for example, you just upload the details of your Prius, your insurance, and you're pretty much ready to go after a background check, right? With a fleet, they are looking at your credentials, your details, your insurance, your vehicle information, and then, okay, what drivers are you allocating to these vehicles? Mm-hmm. So when let's say you have 5 drivers and 5 vehicles, you'll see the names of the drivers and the different vehicles on the platform. Usually you assign a number plate and a vehicle to a driver. They log into that account and they drive. Sometimes what happens, and the system is not watertight, is that a driver might log into the wrong vehicle. And so then the second driver want to switch on my app and get on that car and I see that car is occupied. Well, that's just one simple call to the operator, to you, and say, hey, someone has logged into my vehicle. Can you just make sure they just switch it out correctly? Right. So those little human errors, they do happen on those fleet accounts. They're very, very seldom, but it's generally stacking cars and stacking names.
Gotcha.
And as you go along, if you have any like specific questions, you can always just text. We can jump on the phone.
Okay.
I would step one, I would definitely go down to that hub, find out who your local hub is, tell them what your intentions are, and then let them know that, let's say you're a group of investors. The return of investment is insane on these vehicles because the demand for drivers will always be there. And if you look at what you can generate per vehicle per month, factoring in all the maintenance, et cetera, I mean, those vehicles, if you buy them at the right price, they pay themselves off very, very quickly. And at some point, the car is paid off and you are now starting to generate profits, So that car, I would say, should be paid off in about 15 to 20 months, right? If you lease it out. If somebody drops out, no problem. You immediately advertise the vehicle through Craigslist. A lot of people waiting in queue, or on Facebook. That's where I get the people from. And so the vehicle will always be going. It's not like a vacant apartment that'll sit around for quite some time. You're looking for a tenant. You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
So the money is really made is keeping that car on the road with good drivers. That's the best formula I could follow, or I could have you follow, is right. Good drivers, and then just keep them busy. Tight contracts. On the insurance, by the way, those prices out there differ like day and night. You really, really want to shop around. In one of my videos, I do mention the insurance company that I work with. So I can look that up for you. And then just having a good relationship with the Uber department, the Uber fleet department, is a good thing, right? Because your privileges, your earnings, they start increasing the more cars you put on that platform. The more love they show, the more, it's much easier to communicate with them if you become like a heavy hitter in Dallas.
Right.
Now, go ahead. No, go ahead.
My question is, so as far as charging the driver, we don't charge them up front, like they don't pay me cash. Everything happens through Uber or Lyft. Is that correct?
Yeah, they don't pay you for that weekly rental up front. The way the system is set up is that your bank account, all of your information is known to Uber. They also know which drivers. Obviously, those drivers have to all pass their background checks through Uber. And then the monies that these individuals are earning per week will end up as one lump sum in your account. So let's say you have 5 drivers generating $2,000 a week. $10,000 will be deposited on that Monday morning. You then take out your 5 times $500 for your rentals, $2,500, and then you disperse the $7,500 in checks or electronic deposits, however you want to do it. But it's better that way, because in that way you're always getting paid. You don't want to have someone in your car floating around and then you have to chase them for the payment. You know what I mean?
Right. I gotcha.
It becomes a nightmare. And then tracking systems. Every car should have a tracking system. I think in all the years, only had one car venture off unannounced to Vegas.
Wow.
So like that was in my contract, that there's no out-of-state trips, right? So the guy violated that and was cut off. I don't care if he drove for me for 3 years. He knew exactly that was an absolute no. You have to be strict, because once you're strict and you fire a guy, all the drivers talk. They don't take a chance. Right. The moment you give them a little bit of leniency, then they all start driving to Vegas.
Gotcha.
So, and then what I do is if it's a good year, I mean, during the pandemic, it was awful. Had to even reduce the rates. It's coming back nicely, but you can always count on the private trips. So that as you build out your private clients, right, as a company, your drivers are literally your best recruiters, but you could also just recruit private clients as well and then farm them out to your drivers if you wanted to do that and take a 20-30% cut, from that trip. What I usually do is there's an estimator on Uber or Lyft which will say, okay, from that hotel to the airport, let's just say it's $150, right, on SUV. I can discount it by 10-15% that trip. So I can give that trip to the private client for a $130. They're happy. They're getting a $20 savings. So there's a big incentive for them to book it through you versus to pay $150 through Uber. And then always remember that even if that trip cost $150 on Uber, it would still be split $75 for the driver, $75 for the company. So they are making way, way more as a private trip, right? And then and what I do is I sort of do the soft sale in the vehicles. A lot of business cards go out. I get a lot of free magazines. I attach the business cards to the magazines. They're all in the car. The people usually ask for the business card to say, hey, can I grab your business card? Yeah, absolutely. By all means, take the magazine and the business card. You want to get your name out to as many high-end clients as possible. And like I say, it's very different, UberX to the limo business, because it's all about looking at your Dallas, your high-end hotels, good areas, and then airports, you'll also pick up a lot of people. So if you're dropping off a private client at an airport, and you're waiting at the airport for a pickup, so you can have sort of like an outbound, you should try and then also convert that into a private client, because those are usually frequent flyers that come in and out from airports, right? And they make for easy conversions into private clients into your company. But like not an aggressive approach. Your drivers cannot use, hey, by the way, I drive private trips, here's my card. You know what I mean? Only if you have a really, really good conversation and you get on very, very well with a Uber or Lyft passenger, do I give them a card and say, oh, by the way, if you ever need to be picked up from the airport or so, here's my card. And the card has a picture of the business cards I print for all my drivers. It's got the picture of the person, so they remember, oh, yes, that person drove me. And then usually a picture of the car. Or I'll put like multiple pictures on the back, either Escalades or Suburbans on the back of the car, so they know, oh, yeah, okay, this is this guy's fleet. That's the driver. Yeah, cool. I remember that experience. I'll book them again,
Gotcha.
To tell your drivers that, they also can drive the kids of the families of clients. That's a real good one to grow your business fast, because a lot of these wealthy individuals have children. They would be using services like Hop, Skip, and Drive, which are also private companies using those type of licenses, which you will be getting, which allows you to also transport kids. And that could be picking up kids from school, taking them to events, to parties. And if you offer a good service there and keep the parents in the mix, text messaging, teach your drivers how to interact with the client, you'll get referral after referral after referral. They love it if you take care of their kids and you really communicate well with them. So that's one thing I do very well. So I've got a lot of super wealthy families that have kids, and I might take a group of 5-6 kids to this place, to that place, to the concerts. All of that stuff will come back at some stage as the pandemic, So I would say just starting the process, getting all your paperwork together, speaking to the hub. You're in for about 2 months wait. And then slowly but surely, the market is rebounding. It really is. People are tending to go towards private drivers because they know that, there haven't been 20, 30 Uber clients in that car. So it's like all about safety.
Makes sense.
Makes sense. Waters, like Treat the People Well magazines, waters, mints, hand sanitizers in each door. Spray a little bit before they get in so that they can smell that smell, that sanitizing smell, then they know, hey, this guy's on top of it. He's taking care of me. He's looking out for my health, for my family's health, and they will come. They will. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. But as you go a little bit further and further into it, you just got to text me and say, hey, how do I overcome this hurdle? What do I do here? But I would just say, please don't work with any finance company. And now, I mean, it's the best time to finance cars, right? The best rates ever. But don't work with anyone that will not allow you to register the vehicle as a commercial vehicle.
Commercial vehicle.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
you got to get that in writing. They might say, "Oh yeah, we agree to that." You got to get it in writing.
Okay, put it in writing.
And you might be visiting 10 dealerships, and 2 or 3 would agree to your terms. The other 7 will say, "No, sorry, we won't do that."
Okay.
So it's not.
That's good to know. So
yeah.
2 or 3 out of 10.
Yeah, we'll work with you. Unless you have cash, you go to the auction. You get the very best price at the auction. You can't beat it. You can't beat an auction on a Suburban. Even if the Suburban has 60, 80,000 miles, you can pick something up for $20,000 to $25,000, or an Escalade for $30,000 with low mileage. You'll never get that deal through a dealership. But then that's why investors sometimes help, because an investor can put down $100,000 and you can go out and buy 5 cars and get going. You know what I mean? The financing houses do make sense right now because the interest rates are so low. You're not going to get interest rates like this ever again. So the timing could not be more perfect than taking advantage of vehicle financing or home financing at this current moment in time because of the pandemic. They throw the vehicles at you.
Now, do you feel as if there's a different rate that we could charge the drivers based on California versus Texas?
Well, you get a good feel if you shop around. These fleet operators usually advertise on Craigslist, or you come across them if you Google them, or on Facebook. And you just pretend you're a driver looking to join a fleet, looking to, your rates will not be California rates. They'll be slightly lower. But I can tell you that the Houston rates are pretty much compatible with the LA rates. They might be like $50 less per vehicle per week, right? Okay. But understand that if you're driving in that category, or let's say like in a city of Houston where there's a lot of wealthy individuals, it's just knowing where and when to drive, right? Okay. The amount per mile that these people charge on an SUV is not much different than like LA, for example, right? So you got to look at what they would be generating as a regular Uber SUV or black driver, right? They're used to those numbers. Sometimes these people just have bad credit and they cannot finance their own car, or they've run into a situation, maybe they've totaled their car and they're looking to switch to a rental because they don't want to put miles. There'll be 100 reasons why these people are coming to you. I would interview them and extract as much information as possible. Why do you need the car? How long have you operated? How long have you been on this and this platform? The more good info you get from them, right? You don't want to have, like, I dealt with a guy here in LA, which was just hopping around from car rental company to car rental company. And he told me that. So why would I waste my time with him? You know what I mean? Right. Because I'd have him on the platform for 1 or 2 months and then he'd be looking for the next good deal. Right? If you'll see what you can charge in Dallas per week, per type of vehicle, and then try and get that vehicle onto both Uber and Lyft right away. Get it on the Uber fleet program, and then get it on the Excel platforms. The drivers like it if the car is assigned to 2 platforms, and then the third platform, which I call the private licensing, right? They can do their own recruiting. You can help them recruit. There's so many ways to approach this, right? you said your brother was driving, or who was it?
Yeah, my brother drives.
In what
when the
category?
pandemic hit, he had a BMW. I believe that he did black.
Oh, he did black. Okay, so he's got good experience with those type of clients, then, right?
Right, correct.
Has he done like any private trips or anything like that?
No. I think he was just doing just the standard. If I had found you before and I told him, he probably would have did it, but he didn't think that way.
And was he generating decent money on the black platform?
Oh yeah, he was working full time. Full time. He was taking care of everything, and he lives in Santa Clarita.
Okay, and he was only on Uber, or he was also on Lyft as well?
He only did Uber.
Okay. So you can imagine that same vehicle on Uber, on Lyft, and then you start recruiting private clients, And private clients is, that's 100% for the driver. It means it's 100% in their pockets. They're not sharing it with Uber or Lyft, right?
Gotcha.
And discounting that, like I said, by a little bit helps keep that private individual with you for a long, long time, because they know that on every airport trip they might be saving $20, $25.
Gotcha.
And he's still making 30-40% more than he would be making with Uber. So that's how you grow it. But when you get to that spot, we can communicate again. I